corner of the world there is some terrifying object that people claim has caused them great harm or maybe even taken someone's life. And some of these cursed objects are so out of this world evil that it begs the question, could they actually be from a parallel universe? Welcome back, guys. I'm your host Kennedy, and I'll let you be the judge of that after we count down today's list of the top 10 cursed objects that came from a parallel universe. Starting us off at number 10 is the Busby Chair. The year was 1702 when the British killer Thomas Busby was executed for taking the life of his father-in-law. As the story goes, Thomas was strangely obsessed and protective of his beloved chair, and killed his father-in-law after he found him sitting in the chair without permission. Before his execution was finalized, Thomas was given one final request, and he chose to have one last drink in his chair. And according to the legend, his last words were, quote, "May death come to anyone who dares sit in my chair." Now, of course, no one took this entirely seriously at first. He was a man facing death and was bound to spew a concerning thing, or plus he was known to be a liar and a killer, so no one really took his words to heart. That was until people actually started dying. After Busby's death, multiple reports arose of one tragedy after another, and each of them came from someone who had sat in the killer's beloved chair. One man was found hanging outside the Busby Stoop Inn after sitting in the chair, and many soldiers who sat in the chair during World War II would die days later. Could it be that he was so protective of this chair as it wasn't from our version of the universe? Who's to say? But nowadays, for the safety of everyone, the chair lives in the England Thirsk Museum, hanging from the ceiling so that no one else can ever accidentally be cursed by the evil seat. Next up at number 9, the Hope Diamond. As the legend goes, back in 1666, a French merchant obtained this beautiful blue diamond after illegally plucking the gem from a Hindu idol and selling it to King Louis XIV, a sacrilegious crime for which he was later mauled to death by dogs for committing. Fast forward a few years to the French Revolution, and the cursed gem was allegedly stolen and subsequently disappeared for years, only reappearing in the 1800s. Could it be that it made its way into another dimension during the French Revolution, only to reappear and continue causing misfortune to anyone who possesses the cursed jewel? I mean, there's really no way of truly knowing, but as soon as it made its way back into society, the jewel wasted no time ruining lives, and has routinely been blamed for several tragedies over the years. Some of the misfortunes include the loss of a great fortune, people's deaths, and people taking their own lives, while some even say Marie Antoinette's death could have been linked to her possession of the cursed. Nowadays, you can find this cursed object safely stowed away behind glass in the Smithsonian, where it can no longer wreak havoc on the public. Coming in at number 8, the Crying Boy painting. Originally created by the artist Giovanni Bragolin, the painting of the Crying Boy turned out to be a national sensation, and in turn became a mass-produced print that could be found for sale just about anywhere across Britain. But despite being found in hundreds of homes across England from the 1950s onward, it wasn't until 1985 when people became aware of the curse. You see, what was happening at the time was a strange pattern of houses catching on fire, all of which had two things in common. They all had purchased a print of the Crying Boy that was hanging on their wall, and in each of the houses the print was found in the rubble, completely unscathed by the flames. Some say it could have merely been a coincidence, but the Essex firefighters who found the prints believed that something beyond our realm was keeping them safe from the burning houses. Coming in at number 7, a blindfolded doll. In June of 2014, a creepy doll was found on the side of a busy road in Singapore. The doll was left under a tree, blindfolded by a piece of cloth that was covered in Arabic that read Bismillah, meaning in the name of Allah. I mean, isn't that just a recipe for disaster? After the doll's discovery, a mysterious post appeared on Reddit. It claimed that the doll was known to be possessed by an evil entity, and then it could walk and even talk on its own. Apparently, the original owner was so afraid the doll was gonna kill her or hunt her down if she tried to give it away that she decided to blindfold it to make sure it couldn't see where she went after she left it abandoned. And for good measure, she wrote the Arabic phrase in hopes that it would keep the evil cursed trapped within. According to the witnesses who found the doll on the road, it mysteriously vanished not long after it was found. And many believe that the curse was passed on to someone who found it and unknowingly removed the curse-trapping blindfold. At the moment, no one actually knows where the cursed doll is, and some even think it could be some kind of evil entity from a parallel universe that's using the doll as a host to wreak havoc on our world. Coming in at number 6, the Delphi Purple Sapphire. Often referred to as the cursed amethyst, as, funnily enough, it's not a sapphire, the Delphi Purple Sapphire was a beloved stone once held safely in the Temple of Indra. That was until English Colonel W. Ferris looted it from the temple during the Indian Rebellion in 1857, and brought it back with him to England. However, Ferris soon regretted his decision, as not long after his return home, he quickly began losing his fortune, and his entire family started facing bad luck at every corner. At first, the family blamed the financial hit on a bad investment, but after one of their friends took their own life after holding the stone in their hands, they began to fear that some unseen force could be sabotaging them. And it wasn't just Ferris's family that reaped its misfortunes. The following owner, author Edward Heron Allen, had such bad luck that he tried 3 times to get rid of the stone by throwing it into a nearby river, only for it to make its way back into his possession each time. Eventually, Edward decided to lock up the stone in a box and attempt to seal its powers away, and even shipped it off to his bankers with a set of strict instructions to not open the box until after his death. But London's Natural Museum of History got wind of this so-called cursed stone, and Edward gave in, giving it to them, provided they did not open the box until 3 years after his death, and that his daughter may never be permitted to touch it. The museum followed their strict instructions and waited their due time before setting it out on display, and they quickly discovered Edward was not exaggerating his claims. The museum curator, who had handled the stone a total of 3 times, says each time something awful has happened to him. Once he even got kidney stones after transporting the stone for an afternoon. Coming in at number 5, the Basano Vase. As the legend goes, the Basano Vase was a gift for a 15th century bride on her wedding day, but tragically the bride never made it down the altar as she was killed the eve before her wedding, still clutching her beloved gift. It said the bride vowed revenge for never being able to reach the altar and marry, and many believe the curse lives inside the vase, as each member of her family who took possession of it after her tragic death died soon after. But the strangest thing about this cursed object is that it vanished from the public eye for literal centuries. Somewhere between the 15th century and 1988, the vase's location was unknown until it popped up at an auction in Lyra and sold for $4 million. Could it be that the vase was in another universe all those years, honing its evil powers and waiting for the right time to return and wreak havoc? I mean, maybe. The vase was allegedly sold with a note that read, "Beware, this vase brings death," and the man who bought the vase at the 1988 auction reportedly died soon after. Then the next man who bought it was a doctor, who died 3 months later. In fact, if the reports are true, the longest anyone has ever been able to withstand the evil vase before succumbing to the curse is 3 months. As of today, it's unclear just exactly where the vase is, but it's allegedly been placed in police custody to try and avoid any more unneeded deaths. Coming in at number 4, Anguished Man Painting. Set aside the fact that this painting already just looks like you shouldn't trust it, the story behind it only confirms its haunting exterior. Apparently, a man named Sean Robinson inherited the painting from his grandmother, and charmed by its uniqueness, decided to hang it up in his house. But not long after the painting was in his possession, Sean began sensing that something was off. The family was experiencing creaking doors in the middle of the night, saw the shadow of a man lurk around their bedroom, and would hear blood-curdling screams coming from downstairs that sounded as if someone was being killed. This, understandably, concerned both Sean and his wife, and so they decided to do a bit of investigating about the origins of the painting to see if they could find out where his grandmother had gotten it from. Well, after a bit of sleuthing, they came across a story that said the painting was created by a very disturbed man who allegedly painted the picture mixing his own blood with the oil paints before immediately taking his own life upon completion of the piece. Sean and his wife, believing that the painter was haunting the artwork, decided to hide it away in their basement to keep his spirit at bay. I mean, if it were me, I would probably have taken it out of my house, but hey, to each their own. Coming in at number 3, Women from Lemb statue. Nicknamed the Goddess of Death, this cursed limestone statue was first unearthed back in 1878 in Lemb, Cyprus. Estimated to date back somewhere around 3500 BC, it's unknown who created the statue or what purpose it may have been intended to serve at the time of its creation, but it is believed to have been owned by 4 different families, all of whom died within a few years of obtaining the artifact. It said first up was Lord Elefant, who 6 years after acquiring the statue died along with all 7 members of his family. Then was Ivor Benucci, whose entire family died within 4 years, followed by Lord Thompson Knoll, and once again his entire family perished within 4 years. For a while after that, the statue seemingly vanished until it wound up in the hands of Sir Alan Beaverbrook and his family, who, as I'm sure you can all predict, died within a few years. Now, where was it hiding those few years? That is the million-dollar question that has never been discovered. Some conspiracy believers think it could have been another universe, but we will never truly know. Coming in at number 2, the Dybbuk Box. Back in 2001, a man named Kevin Maris purchased the box from an estate sale. When Kevin bought the item off the granddaughter of the woman who died, she carefully instructed him to never open it, just as her grandmother had told the whole family for years. Kevin agreed, suspiciously, and took it back to his antique shop, placing it in the basement. But the box wasted no time, unleashing paranormal activity all around. The next day, Kevin went downstairs to find all the lights smashed, and his employees were terrified, saying they had heard unruly screaming coming from the basement for hours. Now, for whatever godforsaken reason, Kevin decided the box would be a great gift for his mom, so he decided to open it. Inside, he found a note that read "Shalom," 2 locks of hair, a candlestick holder, and some dried rosebuds. But unknowingly, Kevin also released the demon inside. One day, his mother surprised him by dropping by his shop, so he gave her the gift, only to come back minutes later to her sitting in silence and unresponsive. After rushing her to the hospital, they discovered she had suffered from a severe stroke. After this, he began taking the curse more seriously, and so wanting to keep his family safe, he tried to sell it at his shop. But anytime anyone bought it, they would promptly return it, saying there was a deep darkness living inside the item. And last up in the number 1 spot is Otzi the Iceman. Discovered in 1991 by 2 German hikers in the Otzi Alps, Otzi is an incredibly well-preserved mummy of a man dating back to around 3300 BC. Now, I've said it before, and I'll say it again. Are mummies inherently cursed and evil? No. But am I ever surprised when one turns out to be? Also no. Apparently, after the Iceman's discovery in 1991, the forensic scientist on the case, Rainer Henn, who also happened to be the first scientist to touch the cursed mummy, died in 1992 en route to a conference where he was planning to report his findings. Shortly after, one of the mountaineers who helped Dr. Henn to reach Otzi's remains died when a large rock fell and blew into his skull. Plus, the journalist who filmed Otzi's extraction ended up dying of a brain tumor, and it only gets worse from there. One of the hikers that originally discovered the mummy, Helmut Simon, disappeared for some time only to be found at the base of a 300-foot cliff, and the man who found his corpse died while attending his funeral. Plus, Conrad Spindler, who was at the time the leading expert on the Iceman, went on record claiming that the curse was a hoax, and that if it were true, he would be the next one to die, only to be found dead days later. Lastly, one of the other scientists who discovered too much about Otzi was found dead in his home with no reasonable explanation for his passing. So, after 7 deaths from people that either too much about Otzi or questioned the curse, I can safely say I never want to see this mummy as long as I live. Well, there you have it, guys. I hope you liked this video. If you did, make sure to hit the subscribe button, and I'll catch you next time.